We're live in a second. Starting up. And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Tarantula Talk for episode 2. The topic this time is the state of the hobby. Just basically what's going on, what's good, and what's bad. So, with us today, we'll start off with Erin from Erin W. Smith. That's her channel name. Go ahead. Say hi. Okay. We have Dave from Eeriearachnids with us. And we have InverteVision. What name do you want us to use? Do you want to use your real name, or do you want to use just your channel name? Okay, Corey. Okay, we got Corey from InverteVision. Everybody, everyone's links is in the description below. These are all great channels. Like most of you guys probably know all of them, but go check them out. Well, after you listen to the stream. So let's just jump right into this. So the state of the hobby. I don't know how long you guys have been in the hobby. Like I said, I'm obviously brand new back into it, but I do have experience from about 4 years ago, and so I have a kind of a little different point of view. I know how things were then, and then I jump into it now, and I see differences of how things have changed. So what do you guys think of the hobby right now, though? Like from your point of view, is it in a good place, or do you think it's going into a bad place? Let's start with Aaron. What do you mean? Is a lot of people trying to just people think it's cool and jumping on, and not people really interested? Is that what you mean, or? Oh, wait a second.
The creators of the channel like, oh my god, I just got this red knee, what do I do? And it's good and it's bad, for a lot of reasons. But
Okay, one second. Let me. Unfortunately, when I had you muted on OBS, so just to let everybody read what she was saying, she says that she thinks that the hobby was in a good place, but there's a lot of people getting into it, and I've seen it too, of people just having a lot of pets, doing pet YouTubers, basically, and they just get a ton of pets, and they're pretty much hoarding. Um, and I've seen the same thing. I've seen several really big ones that just have everything, a ton of pets, and it's kind of crazy. First I want to say welcome to Tarantula Cats in our chat, Arachnid Clowns in the chat, and Boxing Boa, guys. Welcome to the chat. Also Ed, I've never pronounced your last name, but welcome. And welcome to everybody else
I'm gonna
who's not talking.
pull this up on my laptop so I can see everybody chatting as well.
Yeah, you can respond to it too and over there. Okay, so that's your opinion on where things is. You think it's going well, but that's an issue for you. So we'll get back into that in a second. That's the topic we talk about. I want to go to David. What do you think of this state of the hobby right now, as far as like tarantulas and well, any pet the hobby?
Well, I mean, I've been doing this for 15 years, so the availability is much greater. So there are more people doing it. There are more unqualified people doing it. And I think that it's not a bad thing. I think growing the hobby is important for the preservation of the species and to bring it to the next generation. But I think the overall integrity of it is a little less than what I saw 10, 15 years ago.
Okay, that you're kind of leading about the same thing. There's people just jumping on board and they're not putting in the effort they should be to learn about what they're doing.
Yeah, I think it is just, real quick, oh, look at that. But that's normal for much more than just tarantulas. I think that's just, a broad stroke over animal keeping, period.
yep.
Yeah, sorry. It's hard to do with the chat. Sometimes you cut each other off. Well, go ahead, Aaron. What were you saying?
Oh no, I'm just agreeing with him.
Okay, yeah, I totally agree too. Let's go with Corey from InverteVision. What is your opinion of the hobby currently? Good, bad?
Well, see, I kept tarantulas probably I don't know, about 10 years ago, and there's a big difference. I just got back into it in November, and I mean
Oh, look at that.
I find it now to be
normal for
there's a lot more information out there and everything, and I mean it's a lot easier. to get the information that you need, which makes it a lot easier to get into the hobby, in my opinion. But at the same time, I mean, it's like everybody else is saying that people are just jumping on without doing their research first,
Yeah.
and then they don't have any idea what to do, you know.
Just a message from the chat. Ed, by the way, says that Dave, your March Madness is super cool. So, somebody's just giving you that props. Boxing Boa says it's the same thing with snakes, that people obviously are just getting into it because, ooh, snakes are cool, and then not putting the research, not taking care of the pets correctly. I see that in every hobby, though. I see that with reptiles, snakes, even like people get hamsters, people get rabbits. Like, look at Easter's coming right now. How many people are going to get their kids a rabbit or a chicken or something and have no idea of the care that they need just because they think it's cute? It's the same kind of concept. Tarantulas the same way. Like you're saying, everybody wants the ones because they look pretty. They get them, and they're the ones they can't take care of for the obvious reasons that we all know of. And then they just end up getting rid of them, or they die off because they don't want to take care of them. So yeah, I do agree with that. There's people just getting into this hobby because it's cool and not putting the effort in. Then you get the people, I think right now in the hobby, I think the biggest problem I have, at least, like I said, I have the view from 4 years ago and then now. 4 years ago, I think it was the people being elitist, I guess. That's a term I like using because it just seems that way to me. In the chats, even in person, when you go to expos and all that, they're still there, but there's more people, I think, in the hobby right now that are seeing that as a bad thing and speaking up about it. I have noticed that since I got back in, that there's more people like Dave, who's like you guys just started a whole new channel on Facebook to try to get rid of those kind of people. And I think that's a huge detriment to people trying to join. The good people that want to join and want to learn and all that are getting pushed out by people just being jerks. I think that's a huge problem with this hobby that a lot of other hobbies don't even have.
I think in a way you're right. The only thing I disagree with is what I've noticed over the last 4 or 5 years of being in the groups and being an administrator in some of them groups is that you have the people that have the knowledge and the experience to try and help people, and you get the people that will listen to the advice and then say, well, you know what, I've kept it like this for 5 years and it's doing fine, so I don't really need to listen to you. And it gets frustrating for those people, so they start to tend to get a little bit more brunt about their information, and the constant same questions going on over and over again. And that's part of why we made that other group, is to welcome everybody. And even if the question was asked 10 times in a day, you're not going to get those people that are going to do that. They're not going to say that. And we try to monitor it better that way. I think it's a more comfortable place to be. But I think you are right that, even when I first got into it, I had somebody that was really, really experienced, somebody that's very respected in the hobby. I had a pumpkin patch, I'll use the common name, a sling. It was about 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch. Had it for about 3 or 4 months, and the abdomen was just huge, and it was getting ready to molt, which would have been the second time that it molted with me. And experiencing the way it did the first time, I posted a picture of it, and this guy got all over me saying, "What did you feed it? A mouse?" And I said, "You know what? It's getting ready to molt." And he's like, "That tarantula's not getting ready to molt." 3 days later, it molted. So, and I'm actually a really good friend with this person to this date. So it's just understanding people, I think, and getting the right people to be in those positions to help people with information.
It is. Anytime you get a large group of people together instead of a chat, you're going to get people that don't get along. It's just not possible to get, like, how many people in some of those Facebook groups, you're not all going to get along. But I mean, there's just some people that are just horrible. Like, I've even just getting back into it, I've ran into these people that drive me nuts, and I can put up with it. I can argue, debate with people. It's not an issue. But then you see people that as soon as they say something, they get yelled at and they disappear. And I don't like that beginners are getting pushed out by some of these people. But then again, like you said, then you have the other side of the coin. There's a lot of beginners out there that won't even listen to the experienced people.
Right.
So
Exactly.
It's hard to figure out how to make it all better, because there's, like, both sides have the decent arguments, like, to the problem.
Yeah.
I argue my side because I'm a beginner, obviously. So I sit there going, like, I'm sick of getting bitched at because I use common names. I'm sick of getting yelled at because I shouldn't have this species because I'm new. That kind of things. It just drives me nuts. then again, like I said, Dave, you're on the other side where you're seeing people that are like, hey, you should do this, screw you, I know what I'm doing. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough to deal with. It really is.
yeah, so there's two sides of every story on that, but hey, it is good. They said you started that new channel over there. That's really helping people. I've seen that. You guys are doing that once a month thing where you do just a bunch of beginner topics, which I thought was really cool. I actually
Yeah.
learned a lot in that one.
It's the first day of every month. It's going to be like Beginner's Day, which we won't do on April 1st because that's Easter and it's a Sunday. So we'll probably have to move that back to a couple days. And that's a day where anybody can just come in and ask any question that they want, even if they think it's stupid. You don't have to ask it on the group. You can send it to any of the admins in the group as a personal message, and then we'll just relay it without using your name if you feel embarrassed. And I think that's part of the reason why the information that is not getting out there is because people are so afraid to ask the questions. So that's why we did that, just to make everybody more comfortable to ask those questions.
That's like me, just being back in for just a few months. I would rather research my question before asking. I feel like it can be like a burden to ask somebody.
And it is. I see that in everything, not just this hobby too. Card games that I play, stuff like that. You'll ask a question on a forum, and everybody go, "Hey, didn't you like search that? Like that's been asked 100 times. Like why we answer this again?" And the next post to be a nice person. Every forums I think is kind of like that. Why did you search for that? I did search for that. I didn't find the answer I wanted. So hell with you. Next person.
Exactly.
And then usually there's other people in there that are helping. So there is usually some good. But it's like, why did you waste your time making a post yelling at the person? Why don't you just ignore it? Like, why did you just keep that to yourself? Ignore it. Go to the next thing. I don't get that.
It's hard for some people. They just need to hear themselves talk. And I'm a big advocate for doing some research, but the problem with doing internet research anymore is that 95% of the information that's out there isn't correct or it's outdated. So going to the group where you have people that have been doing it for a long time, I think is a much better source of that information. And I think it helps new people, especially if you can get someone that has that personality that you mesh with, that you can ask those questions to and feel comfortable with. I always cringe when I see somebody on the group say, Google it, that I just, because I know what information's out there.
Yeah, I've seen that too many times. That's why I said, like, I do my research before I ask a question, honestly.
Yeah, go Google it. You go Google it. Please tell me how many different answers you find on Google to that same question, and that's why this person's here asking. Like, I hate these care sheets. I go to the care sheets, and there's like 5 answers. And I'm like, okay, guys, what's going on here, really? Like, can somebody tell me what I should really do? Like, that's what I always end up having to do.
I think part of that has to do with regions, too, because people will add stuff onto Google, and they're in a different part of the country than you are, and you'll see 5 different things for care sheets. Even in different places in the world, how people keep them can differ based on their climate and their humidity levels that they're in. So you have to take that into consideration with those care sheets also. So it's finding those people that have that comfort zone that can be able to say, hey, you know what, where are you at? I think that's a big important thing when asking for information, is knowing where that person is located and what their climate is, because that can change completely how you set up a tarantula based in like in Arizona or where I'm at in Erie. In Pennsylvania, it gets 90. I could have 95% humidity here in the summertime.
That's how it is here in Tennessee.
So,
yeah, the care does really different, and then we're a global community, so that it gets way different when you go over to like what the Philippines and how they're trying to care for them, and then you go over to the UK how they're doing it, and then over in Arizona, even just in the United States, Arizona compared to like where I'm in Michigan, the care what you have to do to keep the humidity is completely different. So it's the information is really, really hard to get correct with the exotic species. I would just say the exotic species because that deals with most of the invertebrates, even like keeping snakes and stuff that aren't meant to be in these areas. It's going to differ a lot, and then everybody has their own opinions, obviously, too, on how to do things.
Absolutely.
Well, my thing is like whenever I'm researching, because I've had like different pets before, and I always like personally just look at a lot of information and just compare it all. And I mean, I got lucky because when I started only in November, of 2017, I didn't even know that cocoa fiber and eco earth were the same thing.
Oh,
So,
okay.
and I was asking that question, and I didn't even get like bad responses, and I'm so lucky for that. Can I just say that? But no, I would like compare like different bits of information I'd get, and I think that really helped me a lot.
I kind of have to do the same thing. I look at a bunch of stuff, go, I'm just gonna put this all together and see what's most commonly said between them, and then kind of go with that.
Yes.
That's what I've been doing too. And then I ask around. Obviously, having these groups has been actually kind of great. If you can sift through the jerks to find the decent people to go to, I think the groups are great. Obviously, like when you guys started 10, 15 years ago, these weren't even here. Like, how did you guys figure out how to take care of half these things is amazing to me. So,
Well, back then it was whatever you were told at the pet store, that's where all the problems began, because you didn't have that outlet that we do now to be able to talk to people and understand how they keep them. Back then, I mean, my first one was, we won't get into the whole genus switch stuff, but Grammostola rosea was my first one. And it was we did use cocoa fiber back then because that was what was described to us, but it was only on an inch and it had just this little tiny hide, and we would buy it a box of crickets and we would just leave that in there and the crickets would just wander, because that's how we were told to do it. There was no real place to get that information like there is now. So to tie that all back into the state of the hobby, I think that's where the state of the hobby is in better shape for the tarantulas now than it was 10 or 15 years ago.
okay, yeah, that's a good point actually. Yeah, the difference, like the amount of information we have, although it's an overload at the moment, at least is better than what you guys just had to do with
Trying to
pet
figure
store.
it out on your own.
Yeah, pet store
Yeah.
stuff, please. Which then again, I think that's where a lot of the misconception of pet stores always being like the worst place comes from. I know the pet stores around my house actually do fairly
It's
decent.
not a misconception. I used to work at one. I'm not going to say which one, but I can tell you right now,
Was
it's
it a
bad.
big box one or a small one though?
Big box one,
Okay,
yeah,
there's a big difference between big box and then
and small.
yeah, the small ones seem to care a little more. I got several around that actually do have at least a basic idea of what they're doing. When I go there, I talk to them, and they don't sound like they're completely, ignorant of what they're doing. Um, so it's not as bad, but then again, yeah, you have the big boxes, and you do have the ones that just want to sell and push product and buy stuff they don't know what they have, and so it's a give and take. I have several around me. I can go in there and talk about spider tarantulas, and they can talk to me about them. So I always see that side, and then I see everybody talking about how bad pet stores are. So
I think your small mom and pop stores, most of them are probably pretty decent, but I mean, you could go, and we'll get into the expo stuff later. I think that's on your agenda,
Yeah,
but
yes.
you could go to expos and have crap, people that are basically reptile dealers that just get a handful of tarantulas because they were either got them cheap or they got them given to them.
Yes.
They put them on the tables. They have no idea what they're selling. They have no idea how to tell people. They're just selling, a skeleton leg tarantula for $45, but they can't tell that person how to keep it. And that person looks at it, it's like, oh, look how cool this thing is, takes it home, and has no idea what to do with it.
And there's a big difference in care between the one that commonly is the skeleton tarantula and the Samani, which looks a hell of a lot like it. there's a pretty big difference in which one you have.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot
it's
of
more attitude than actually keeping, because I think you can keep them both
Yeah.
the same way.
Isn't one more of a burrow? I thought okay. Anyway, I don't want to get into care. We could talk way too much into care. Well, let's get into. Do you guys want to talk about the effect of the genus changes on the hobby, or do you want to get into expos next? Let's switch the topic up. What do you
That's
guys?
fine. You can go with the genus changes.
Let's just go with the genus changes then. So as everybody knows, we've had the aviculaire changes, which is every time I go to the hobbies, it seemed to completely confuse the hell out of everybody out there. And then Dave, you just did that awesome video explaining the B. smithy, B. hamori, actually what it was, which
Nope.
I did know because it came up in a big debate I was actually in like a few weeks before that. But you did a great job describing all that. Yeah, I learned stuff in your video too that I didn't know. So, but what do you guys think that's doing to the hobby? Is it a big deal? Is it actually hurting hobby-wise? I mean, we all know the scientific names just need to be changed to be correct for science, for biologists, for all that stuff. They need to be fixed. How is it affecting the hobby, though, is what I'm wondering. What do you guys think? Let's start. Let's go with we'll go with Corey. He hasn't talked that much. Let's get Corey talking.
As far as the genus changes, I mean, like with me getting back into the hobby back in November, there's not really a lot that it has done to affect me. Like with the Avicularia going to Carabina, there at first I thought the entire genus went to Carabina, and it took me a little while to differentiate the ones that actually stayed Avicularia. But for the most part, the name change really hasn't affected me all that much for just getting into the hobby. It's not
Okay.
really bothersome, if that's the way to put it.
Okay, so it hasn't really affected you. Let's go. I know Dave's probably have the longest description of this. So let's go to Erin next, and they'll go into Dave.
Yeah, I figured. I was like waiting for Dave to talk. Well, for me personally, I think it definitely is a bad thing because, well, I mean, like the common names, like, and people using them at like pet stores, even the reptile ones, because sometimes they don't even know what they have, and they're just confusing people who don't know anything about tarantulas. Because I've seen people call striped knee like it's still like technically Grammostola porteri. They call it a striped knee, but isn't that usually called a common a rose hair? Like that's just confusing everybody. And then sometimes they'll have it on the opposite end of that where it'll actually be an asimani and not a rose hair. And there seems to be some confusion, at least in my reptile stores, with those two in particular, and those two are very different. So,
well, that's just the common name issue, which, like I said, I could do a whole stream on the common name, and I plan on doing it because I know there's people waiting for me to do it because it's gonna be interesting. But because I have a very different point of view, as Dave knows, me and Dave go back and forth on it. But
Have you ever talked in a chat?
okay. Yeah, but what about the Avicularia changes though? Have you seen an issue with, like, is that come up at all with you? Like, it's probably not gonna come that much in pet stores, but like expos, it seems to be affecting, and talking to people online, they just have no idea like kind of what they have. Have you noticed?
Yeah.
Is that because you think that's being an issue for the hobbyists?
Yeah, I think overall it will be because it's going to take so long for us to like really like hammer down, I guess, what the actual spider is. So, I mean, people are just going to see something and they're going to be like, oh, this is that. And they're not going to listen to the people that actually know what they're talking about sometimes. So, but personally, I've only been to one expo as a tarantula keeper, so I don't really have much experience with that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, see, I've had the same issue, and I've actually went to Dave on it. I was asking what I have, because I have 3 pink toes right now that are all listed as Avicularia. They all 3 look different. One's actually the one I'm giving away for a giveaway. I got to mail that out. I don't think I'm gonna mail it through Easter because of issues. I'm gonna mail it after. But I don't know exactly what of the 3 I have, and I've asked even at the vendor at the show, and he even says, he's like, I went around to the other vendors and asked, and none of them have any idea of what this would be listed as. So everything's just falling under Avicularia, and I think that there's some, they're not all just the same thing to me. Like, I don't know, I mean, if you're just gonna put them all as Avicularia, and that's everything is just coming in being bulked together, how is that gonna affect breeding and a bunch of other things going on? That's kind of like the problem I'm seeing a lot of people have, of just people don't know what they have now.
I see a lot of people confuse Avicularia, and Avicularia metallica a lot.
Well, technically they're the same thing. It's just Avicularia color phase 6 or whatever, morph 6. So I'm like, and then what's the other? I only know that one. What's the other 5 morphs? Like, I can't even find information on that. I've been looking for it. So
that's where the problem lies, is those other 4 or 5 morph types. If you don't deal with Avicularia often enough, you won't know what they are. And the people that do deal with them a lot really did research on that paper and understand the changes. And it's not necessarily a change that happened. It was we don't have anything to compare them to from, they call it holotypes, the first specimen that was ever collected. So they technically can't keep some of the names, and they found out that these tarantulas all pretty much had the same, we'll just use layman's term, the same equipment. So, the setae and the male tibial apophysis, and then the female spermathecae all that stuff was generally the same. So they just said, okay, well, we just have different morph types based on regions. Now, what we knew in the hobby, the hard part about avicularia is when you have them from that sling size to about 2 inches. Most people don't know, have no idea what they are because the colored patterning on their abdomen is very, very similar. So, trying to segregate them as slings is very difficult. You need to get that abdominal pattern gone, and you'll start seeing changes in the color of the setae on the legs or the abdomen, the way it's facing, the grizzled look of it. So, to answer the question, is it a bad thing for the hobby? In the aspect of people trying to understand what they have, yes, for the hobby part of it. Me being on that scientific edge more than I am on what's best for the hobby, I understand what the changes were done for. And I also knew about a lot of the changes prior to them happening. So when you have that firsthand information prior to it happening, it's not such a shock or surprise to you. So it's the same thing with the Homori and the Smithy deal, and what's hopefully coming soon with the Grammostola genus.
And isn't there? There's another one they're talking about. I heard a bunch about that from. I think you said something, and at the expos I've been hearing about it. What's it?
There's a handful of them that are being under review. The Asian species, so that the whole entire Ornithoctinae family of tarantulas from the Asia species, so Cereopagopus, Lampropelma, Omithymus, Ornithoctinae, Ornithoctonus, all those are being reviewed. Hopefully, in the next handful of years, and the Pamphobeteus genus needs completely redone because there's some in that family or in that genus, I should say, not family, but in that genus that are probably going to be moved out of that genus to something different. And I have one of those, which is what they call the Pamphobeteus pedersii. And that's where, if you see any of my videos, when I do that, it's usually Pamphobeteus CF pedersii, and that CF stands for confor, or nothing to compare it to. So that's why that CF is in there, because it was named something, but they really don't have anything to compare it to. So that specific species will be moved out of Pamphobeteus in the Megaphoboma genus. And if you look at the tarantula and you look at a Megaphoboma, you would understand why that change is going to be done. So visually is the hard part of the hobby. People want to look at what they have and say, this is what I have. And it's very difficult for Vicularia. Probably the most difficult that I found in my experience out of all these things that I've had over the years.
Okay, yeah, but do you admit that it's causing a strain on the hobby a bit as people are trying to figure out what they have, basically? Because I know, because like I said, I have these three avicularia. I like to know exactly what they are. Like, I want to know exactly what I have, and I can't figure that out. It's not even possible at this point. And like you said, though, they are 2 inch things, so maybe I'll know more as they get bigger. But I don't even like the fact that, well, that I was buying these and I have not sure what I have.
Yeah.
So I don't like buying something, not sure what it is. I mean, granted, I understand what's going on with the Vicularia, so buying them, I'm like, hey, everybody knows we kind of have this issue. This is what you're getting. You'll know when it gets bigger. I'm not as worried about it. But then you're saying, too, like, that's what I heard, too, is that about the Pamphobeteus, that, like, they're going to be changing about that whole genus, because it's, like, people are talking, at the expo, a couple people I was talking to were saying that that's just completely wrong, and they're going to be doing the same kind of thing as a Vicularia, and doing a massive overhaul on that. And
Yeah,
everything.
yeah. And most of the Pamphobeteus are done with species, and they'll, you'll have Pamphobeteus species Machala, and that'll just be named after where they were collected from. So actually, they're just not, they weren't researched. They're not biologically done or taxonomically done, so they can't actually name it, because right now it's just an unclassified specimen, but it is a Pamphobeteus collected from, wherever in Ecuador, or whatever the other countries are that they're from. I can't even remember. I'm not a big Pamphobeteus fan, so I don't know a ton about them. I just know that there's a huge, huge amount of work that needs to get done with them.
It seems like with a lot of GSs, there's a lot of stuff to get done, and it's gonna keep having year after year after year as they change more and more and more of them, keep having an effect on the hobby, and especially for people getting in, they're just trying to learn these names. Like I said, I'm in that category of still trying to learn the scientific names and knowing what's what. It makes it very
I prefer
difficult.
the scientific name versus the common names.
Well, like I said, we'll get into that another stream, but just trying to learn the scientific names themselves. The common names aside.
Wait, can I ask one like really stupid
Go
question?
ahead.
So avicularia, and avicularia metallica are the same thing?
Dave, you wanna? You
In
know more.
in like in the aspect of the description in the genus itself, yes, they are. It's actually just a morph type. So think of an avicularia that got dipped in white paint, and you have an avicularia metallica. Um, that's really all the difference is, except there's other things that you have to watch for. Avicularia generally have that red setae on the legs, on the abdomen, where Avicularia metallica will have a brownish or whitish tip setae on the tarantula. So
Okay.
differences in amount
Yeah.
of setae on the
So,
rear legs, and then the overall size of the tarantula at adult size. A general avic is going to be right around the 5 inch mark. An avic metallica can be 7 inch, 7.5 inches. So
really?
you'll get to understand that as they grow. And most of the avic species are on the smaller side. There's only a couple of them that are over 6 inches, and that's the Braunhausani, I think, is one. That's the largest one. I think they call that the Goliath Pinto, and then
Yeah.
Avicularia metallica or Morph Type 6 is another one that generally would get to a larger size.
Yeah, see, like it's still even though I understand what you're saying and most of that, it still confuses the hell out of me. It's like, how is it the same thing yet it's like 3 inches bigger, completely different color, just because it's basically the genitals are the same? Like, to me, it just doesn't make sense that that's the same thing. Like,
Right. Well, now keep in mind that's right now, and that all can change as they continue to do work in the genus itself. That those things can be taken out of that morph type and actually be given a species name back and saying this is completely different than this. But what they had to go on right now, I'm not a scientist by no means, so I don't know
mm,
what these two biologists or taxonomists did with all this, but they felt that lumping them all together like this was the best route to go scientifically.
okay, yeah, that's the thing. It's like, I completely understand that scientifically has to do that. It's just my problem is it does such a tax on the hobby. It's so hard to for everybody to learn all this stuff. Like even here, like Aaron didn't know they were the same thing. Um, I got in just as the AVIX were coming out, that issues was up. So like I dove right into it. So I know a little bit more. I still can't find a list anywhere. Like why is it there like a list out of okay, this was what we used to call this, and this is this now, or this falls under AVIC, this morph. Like why
If
isn't
I
that?
I'll try and find it, send you the link. There's a way to do it. There's two different places you can find it. One you have to pay to get it. The other one you can get it for free. Let me figure out where I have it saved on my phone, and I'll send you guys that link.
Because I really would
Yeah,
like to
that, I
know.
didn't know they were the same thing either. I'm just sitting here
thank
absorbing all
you.
this information.
Yeah,
There's
Now
six
I feel
morph types with the avic. So all those are actually considered avicularia. It's just a different morph type, or just basically if you take the morph type out and say maybe locale instead. So where they're collected from in Suriname or in Brazil or wherever they're actually collected from is going to be different than where a normal typical avic is from. But avics can spread so far across the top part of South America there that they intermingle with these other species, not species, morph types. I still say species myself, but the other morph types or locale different avics. It is very difficult to understand for people that just want to be in the hobby and have fun. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's a big part of it is
Right.
that people want to just be in the hobby and collect them. And just like you said, want to know what you have.
yeah.
It's very, very difficult to understand. It
It's a
is. It's extremely difficult to
It's
understand.
it is really difficult because not trying to get off the topic of tarantulas, but I also keep ants, and I mean like it having two of the same ant, like say I keep Campanatus pennsylvanicus, and then there's Campanatus suborbitus. They look totally different, but they got the same first name. I just that's what I don't even understand. With like the avicularia, and then avicularia metallica, how they're the same thing, but yet they've got two different names.
yeah. It's a lot of that.
It's confusing.
I think that what Dave just hit on is a big thing. That's the difference between like when me and Dave were talking, we came up before too, is that there is people in the hobby that are like Dave who they get into it and really enjoy the scientific side of things, and then there's
That's
people that
me.
are more like me who go, you know what, I want to know what I have, how to care for it exactly, but I don't want to know exactly part of which country, what side of a river, all the stuff that goes into the scientific aspect of it. But you kind of almost have to get into all this stuff to know what you have. It makes it a very hard hobby to get into, I guess. Like, if you're a beginner getting in and they're listening to the stream right now and they heard everything Dave just said, they're going to like, what? I have to know what? Like,
Yeah.
See, I enjoy everything you
Like-
just said.
well, there are people like me, like, I was listening to him and I enjoyed it because I like learning. But there's people getting into it
Yeah.
that
Right.
are going to go, wait, what? Wait, what? That's a difference I keep seeing is the difference in the scientific community to the hobby type of the push and pull in this hobby. Of the hobbyists that just want to be hobbyist, and then there's the people that want to know all that stuff. And it is a push and pull back and forth. I don't see either as wrong. It's just, it's not in every hobby. You know, if you collect fish, there isn't that push and pull back. If you collect any other pet, basically, you don't have. I don't think lizards and snakes don't even have this much back and forth of the how hard it is to tell what you have compared to like I said, every other hobby. So like,
Yeah.
this is a very hard hobby to get into and not be intimidated. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I
not-
think too.
I
Like,
don't-
sorry.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Okay, well, I actually, not to throw this out there again, but Tom Moran's podcast, I like always talk about this, but he was talking about how it's easier to get from like reptiles and things like that over to tarantulas because you get accustomed to things like that. And like I had mammals before, and mammals have always been what I've kept. So this is all like very new to me. So
Yes,
I just wanted to throw that out there.
I think snakes kind of do have a little bit of it, but even when I go and talk to snake fans, they're all using just common names most of the time. The morphs are all pretty standard. Like they'll just spit them out.
Yeah.
Like the morphs is probably the hardest part because they get into all the genes. But even those I think are easier to figure out than the 900 different freaking genus and species out there. And when they change them on you, once you figure it out, then you gotta relearn stuff. And
Yeah, and I think that, again, I'm not a reptile guy by no means. I have, the snapping turtle and then 2 leopard geckos. That's what we have here. But I mean, Boxing Boa could probably answer this question a little bit better than I can. But I mean, a ball python is a ball python. It's just different morph types. So you don't have like a genus name like Acanthoscuria. And the answer, Boxing Boa, is both of his are geniculata, just so you could tell him that. One's a narrow band, one's a wider band. There is no Brocklehursti anymore. But to reiterate that, if you say, okay, I have a ball python, whether it's a spider or I don't even know what all the morph types are, but the genus is still the same. So
yeah,
that ball python, no matter what color it looks like, is going to have the same genus name, the same species name. It's just different genetics that they bring in to bring out those colors. We don't have that in our hobby. We have a genus that could have, 80 different species in it, and it becomes very difficult to understand all those, especially the subtle differences between some of them. I mean, look at Lasiodora and Acanthoscuria are the 2 biggest ones. Trying to understand those subtle differences between a Lasiodora paraimana or a Lasiodora klugi or a Lasiodora difficilis can be difficult if you don't know what you're looking for. So I think that's the big problem, that the taxing part that we have in our hobby is that genuses can have multiple species involved with them.
and a lot of them look pretty close to the same.
Yep.
And so it gets really, really difficult to know what you have. It's not as easy, like you said. I go pick up a hamster. I have a hamster. I know exactly what I have. You go to pick up a tarantula. It's like, okay, what exactly do I have? Wait, it's just a lot more detail goes into knowing it. And I want to bring up something that is it Teshek?
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. I'm not sure exactly what it is. Anyways, he says it's a fun part of the hobby. I enjoy doing the research. A lot of people do. I actually do. Like, I will sit here and argue against a lot of this stuff as part of a beginner. I actually don't have a problem doing it myself. I just see it as a problem that's making it hard for people to get into the hobby, if you understand what I'm saying. It's not me saying, I don't want to do the research, or I don't like this, or I don't enjoy the science, because I actually do. I love watching Dave's videos and learning stuff. But I know there's a lot of people that just want to get in the hobby and collect tarantulas, and they don't want to have to do all this stuff. And I think it hurts the hobby a bit, but then again, at the same time, you could say it's an elitist type of thing to say. I heard a lot of people say it too. It kind of bothers me. It does keep the people out that don't want to put the research in to take care of them properly. But then again, most things you can look up and know the research nowadays and look up the care without knowing what the scientific name even is for a lot of them. So there's just such a push and pull. Like, I can see both sides of the argument. Okay, well, before we get into too much of the scientific names, and we only have so much more time on this stream, let's get into want to get into expos.
Yeah.
Let's get into expos. So, Erin, you said you've only been to one, right?
One is a tarantula person. Not like, it's not my first expo, but it's, you know, you see it through different eyes when you're going as a certain, like, collector, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, you're only looking at certain things before certain things.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, see, I'll start with my opinion first. So my opinion of the expos right now is I'm highly jealous of the UK. Honestly, you guys over there, like, holy crap. Like, you guys have...
I know, right?
They're like, oh, we only have a couple. Yes, but you have 4 in the UK that are, like, almost all completely just invertebrates.
Inverts, yes. Yeah. Invert expos.
And it's like, I would like to... I see stuff like Tarantula Dan, and he got it from another guy. I actually cannot remember his name. I'm sorry about that. Doing a communal setup of inverts. And he just goes, oh, I got these beetles, and I got this, and I got this. I put... Like, how the hell did you get all this from one expo? And then you get here, it's like, well, we just have to go to reptiles. Here. Yeah, we have to go to the reptile expo.
I mean, some people have, like, reptile expos every 2 weeks. We get Repticon, like, twice a year, and that's basically just a ball python more.
Where I live in Tennessee, I'm able to hit a Repticon every couple months. Like, there's one north of me, and then there's one south of me, so I'm able to go back and forth whenever they do come.
Okay, Dave, what do you guys have up there where you're at? Like, is it...
Actually, we used to have a few here in Erie, but because of laws that they didn't know existed in Erie, they had to shut it down because just some goofy laws about keeping, and that's a whole different story. But so those have gone away. Well, we do have Buffalo, which is in May and in October, and then Pittsburgh has a couple, and I'm not quite sure about Cleveland. I'm an hour and a half from any one of those big cities, so I can hit any of those. But I've only been to Buffalo once. I will be going on May 6th there. When I went last year, my daughter and I went, there were only a handful of people. And I went there specifically just to meet one of my friends that was vending there. I had some stuff to take to her to breed, and she was giving me some stuff in return. But there was only 3 people there that had tarantulas. Of course, Ruth from Mostly Reptiles was the one that I went to see. She knows what she's talking about. She has great stuff. Another one that had basically all tarantulas and mantises and a handful of scorpions, and knew what they were talking about, but their prices were like unbelievable high, just super high. And then you had that one table that had everything, you know, leopard geckos, Pac-Man frogs, tarantulas, scorpions, centipedes. That's where my centipede came from, was in Buffalo. And they were selling everything for cheap because they just wanted to get rid of stuff. They were there just to make money.
They're probably all imports, I bet. I bet you they brought bulk imports and just...
Yeah, I would say that most of their stuff is mostly wild caught for those places, to be honest with you. And, you know, I mean, you have Ruth who breeds her own stuff and buys, you know, stuff from wholesale that people breed here in the States, or gets in on the imports from Europe. And that's why Europe has such a vast variety of different insects, is because mostly everything that's here came from there. The breedings in Germany and Poland were, you know, those 2 countries are the biggest breeders of tarantulas in the world. So you have some very big breeders that breed, that's all they do. I mean, every species that's out there, that's where all these T. celadonias came from, was a Poland. I think the guy was from Poland. It could be from Germany. But anyway, yeah, so you go to the expos and you'll see, like, I keep getting people that'll message me and say, hey, Dave, I'm at an expo. There's this Goliath bird eater that's $65. It's 7 inches. What do you think? And my automatic response is it's wild caught. So you have to make call. It's wild caught. Do you really want to deal with that? And I'm telling you, out of all the tarantulas that you could keep wild caught, Ephebopus can be a problem for you. The Moranus is one that's greatly wild caught. Sometimes you have a hard time getting them to adjust. And Theraphosa, because you have no idea what they were living in before, and trying to emulate that is so difficult. And, you know, again, this could be a whole nother topic too, but understanding that where tarantulas come from doesn't really mean that that's how you have to set them up here unless they already lived in that condition, because they are so adaptable to things that you would not believe. So, I mean, I like expos. I like the idea of them. I think it's going to be cool. We're going to try and do, a video there. We'll try to do a little live thing. My daughter and my brother are going with me. So we'll try to do a little bit of stuff there. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have a lot of experience with them. I'd love to go to Tinley someday just to see what goes on there, because I think there's a more vast amount of people selling inverts there than most places.
I think that's a big issue in the U.S. at least. Like I said, well, here, like I'll go with expos I have here. I have one every month I can go to that is about 20 minutes, 30 minutes from my house. I have another one that's up north. I have one on the other side of the state. There's 2 there. Like within my range in a month, I have 4 to 5 within an hour and a half, 2 hour drive. I have at least 4 to 5 I can go to, but they're all maybe 2 tables of tarantulas. Like it's all mostly reptile stuff, and when you go there, it's all the same stuff, over and over and over. And I don't know if this is the issue or not, but it seems like most of the breeding that goes on in the U.S. gets sold to a couple of online stores, and then you almost have to go to those stores, or go to an expo those stores went to, like Tinley, to get the larger variety to do that kind of stuff. And I don't really like that part of what's going on in the U.S. as far as the hobby goes. I wish we had more people doing their own breeding. Like you were saying, she does her own breeding, goes to the show. There's people like that I really like. We have a couple guys around here, but those are like, they go to every expo, so it's like the same thing every time. You're not getting a lot of variety unless you buy online. In the United States, it seems like this hobby is almost, you have to buy online. Like, expos aren't really a thing here for tarantulas.
I think that's the country too, though. I mean, we've gone from having to drive to a mall to buy things to just sitting in your pajamas and ordering it online, having it shipped to your door. So I think that the online dealers or the online stores are that way because of ease, really. I mean, they still do their shows. Like Fear Not Tarantulas, Tanya's doing shows, mostly the bigger ones, but she does shows quite often in Virginia, and then she's gone to Tinley. I think she's going to plan on doing some other ones soon. But Ruth from Mostly Reptiles does expos almost every weekend. The problem is breeding tarantulas is not very easy, and even though people think it is, it's not as easy as people want to believe it is. And having the room to do that, to be able to have enough tarantulas to go to an expo and sell, is very difficult for one person to do. So you have to rely on, people like me who just do it, off the wall here, and just say, okay, I'm gonna try breeding these, and I'll just wholesale them to somebody that's gonna take them to an expo or put them online or whatever it may be. We have more of that here than over there. I think the people that do the stuff in the UK are the same people generally over and over and over again at those shows, where we have people that just try to breed stuff just because they want to be cool, really, to be honest with you. So that's where you're going to get a lot of those slings involved. And if you notice, if you go shopping on most of the online stores, there are very little adults for sale on those places, because they hold them back to do their own breeding to have more stuff to sell. So you basically buy slings all the time.
Yeah, I hate that. I every time I go, I'm looking. I don't want a sling. I go looking like, oh, we have like this and this. And that's like, that's all you guys have. I'm like, that's what we're looking for.
That's where you're going to get the expo. That's where you're going to find those things, is at the expos, the bigger tarantulas. And unfortunately, a lot of them are going to be wild caught, and it's kind of suck. That's where my Atlas species red came from. I paid $30 for her, female Euapla species red. Where would you ever find that? So she was a wild caught tarantula, and I was excited when I got her, and but yeah, you just don't know. And there was a fly by night people that did mostly. They had everything. This person had 17 tables at this expo. They had goldfish, every kind of turtle you could think of, reptiles, and then a little section of tarantulas, and that's where I got her, $30. I mean, how could you say no?
Oh yeah, but that person is just importing bulk of all that stuff. And you just the guy I got my Goliath from, my Sturmy. I knew instantly it was wild caught. He never even tried to hide that fact. I'll tell you what, that guy's crazier than any old world I've ever had to deal with so far. Like, he's insane. He literally spends all day walking around trying to find a way out of his tub.
Yeah, because he's probably not in nowhere near the same kind of conditions that he was in. Not to your fault because you don't know that. It's where that spider was taken from is going to vastly be different than what you can supply for that spider. To be honest
Yeah.
with you, that's where captive breeding needs to be. The main area to buy your spiders from.
I think a big problem with our expos in the United States too is distance. The United States is rather large, so
Yeah.
where if you
Yes.
sell to a bunch of the breeders, I hear a lot of the breeders come out of Poland and Germany, and they can travel to every expo. It's not that difficult for them to travel to basically every expo. They can travel to the UK, they could go to all the other countries around there, and it's not an expensive trip. It's not a long trip compared to if you're a breeder in California or over there, you can't make it to the Midwest expo. So you're not getting all the people together. You're so spread out in the United States. I think that really kind of hurts us too, um, where there's just way more I think breeders of snakes than there are teas because obviously the ease of doing it, I would assume. I don't know. I've never dealt with breeding a boa or anything, but I think it's a difference. There's just way more of them, and anybody breeding is selling to the big stores, and the big stores are only going to the local ones or the really big ones like Tinley or one of those big ones. And so it's really spacing out what we can even get here, at least expo wise. So once again, we're stuck buying online and only buying mostly slings.
That's where I prefer to buy slings myself. I want to be able to watch them grow personally. I do have a couple subadults and adults, but I just, I don't know. Personally, I like to start off with slings.
I understand that, like, because I kind of I like both because I do want to have something, especially when anybody who's getting in, because I do try to take the aspect of a beginner. A lot of my stuff I talk. Um, if I get in just learning, one slings are a little harder to keep alive. I think they do tend to die a
Yeah.
little more often for any simple mistakes. They're not as forgiving, so they're harder to get. So trying to get it's better to start off probably with something that's a little bit bigger, 2, 3, 4 inch, and you can't buy them as easy other than like these same like 3 or 4, I guess you could say. And then you're stuck with slings and you got to learn all of that, which I think hurts the beginner aspect of it. But anybody that's been in the hobby for a while is like, oh yeah, I want to get the sling because I want to have it its whole life. I want to keep all the bolts. I want to be there the whole time and watch it grow. That's a big aspect for anybody that's been in a while. But
Well, that was the opposite for me because when I started, I was terrified of keeping slings because I got this impression that they're impossible to keep alive. Like you had to be like a huge expert in order to keep them alive, which I know now is not true, but I was terrified of getting a sling. So,
I had that when I first started too. I had people say, like, "Oh yeah, don't get a sling. They, you gotta do everything perfect or they die." And blah blah blah. I was like, "Okay," I avoided it, and then luckily I ran into a breeder, a guy from Eeriearachnids, who basically doesn't do it anymore because of time concerns. Um, luckily I learned a lot more from him. But yeah, I was Tarantula Cat, by the way, just said I like Juno's best. You should just see when they run away, which made me laugh when I read
oh,
that.
yeah.
Well, it's true though.
It
If you,
is.
if you think about it.
It is, especially from a beginner point of view. If you're just starting, could you imagine, like, if that little thing ran away, you're trying to find it compared to a 2 inch or 3 inch juvenile, which is much easier if it does anything like that.
I actually had that happen about a week ago. I had a Ceratodrus darlingi I was feeding, and it got out 3 different times in the process of trying to feed it, and it was a pain to try and find the last time. It went up under my rug, and it just kept going back farther and farther every time I would lift it up.
What size was it?
It was probably about a 3/4 inch sling.
Oh, jeez.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
My worst nightmare.
It
I
was,
think
and they're already fast enough as it is.
Yeah.
yes. I think the big misconception with slings is that people don't understand that most of them aren't actually supposed to survive. And I think that's where you get that slings are so hard to take care of
Yeah.
because the vast majority of them aren't going to make it no matter what you do. It's just the way it's supposed to be. It's
Right.
natural selection, basically. Because if you think about, I always use Lasiodora paraibana as an example because you could have 1,000 spiderlings that hatch, and they say if 80 of those make it to adulthood, that sack was successful in the wild. So you have to figure predation, cannibalism, uh, whatever else, just elements, and then the ones that just are too weak to survive. It's just the way it's supposed to be. But you can watch that all the way through as slings. If they're comfortable, they won't go anywhere for the most part. But they are the ones that are most likely to bolt on you too. They're quicker. They're less. They feel less secure. As they start to age, they get a little bit bolder. They're more comfortable in their homes, and now they want to defend their home instead of running from it. So, I think understanding slings itself. Again, having 1,000 of them hatch in this little burrow, they all have to go somewhere. So, imagine those little guys trying to run all over to find their own place to live, that they're not going to get eaten by one another. So I think that has a lot to do with where people have troubles them getting out. I've had plenty myself, just trying to feed, and they just want to walk out on you. So if you look at things in the hobby or in your own home, as you can try and correlate it to what they actually would deal with in the wild. Sometimes some of this stuff makes a little bit more sense to you.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But still, like, beer-wise, slings isn't what I would suggest to anybody for those reasons you said. Like, they are more likely to bolt. They are harder to find. They are faster. Just so, like, when you're trying to buy online, it really kind of, like, hurts anybody trying to get in. But then again, I guess if you're just starting out and you don't know exactly what you're doing anyways, you probably should be buying at an expo or a pet store or something, first and ordering online, not knowing really what you're getting, I guess. Um,
I actually ordered slings my first go. It
oh,
was
did you?
7 of them. Yeah.
I hate
And they're
buying online.
So do
that's
I.
honestly where I've bought every one of mine online so far except for I think maybe 10.
That's about half
I
what
have
I own now.
50 right now, so
Um,
I don't mind online. I just wish shipping was cheaper.
yeah,
yes,
Yeah,
that's
for
what kills
real.
me.
yeah,
I will wait until I have at least $200 or $300 worth before I order, just because of shipping.
that's
Yeah.
that's my problem. Is like I can't just go buy something I want. If I want one thing, I literally have to wait until I can buy a bulk order, and then when I go to most of these sites, they
Yes,
only have one or two things I want,
Hmm.
and then I
and
have to
like
buy extra just to make it worth my while to pay $50 shipping.
it's
Yeah,
like
that's for
going back
sure.
to the aspect of the expo. I would love to be able to go to an expo and pick which specimen exactly that I want. Instead, you don't know which specimen out of all the ones they've got that you're getting.
Yeah, you have to pick them
I
up,
would
look
just,
at them, and take the one you want.
yeah,
hmm
yeah, that's what I would rather do.
Yeah,
But there's just not that variety.
which is what I think hurts us not having the expos. It's kind of what I'm coming back to. Like, you're adding cost to the hobby because you have to pay shipping basically in the United States. You can't just go to an expo, look at it, pick out what you want, and take it home. You have to order online, which means that you have to buy in bulk or you have to pay $50 extra shipping, which adds a lot of more cost to the hobby. And when you look at a lot of hobbies out there, this is already an expensive hobby. Like, it's real easy to keep them, real cheap, I should say, to keep them. You can make homes out of, like, enclosures out of so much cheap stuff. But then you look at the actual pet, it's like, I mean, I only have 26, but I don't even want to think about how much they're all actually would have cost me just individually compared to any other pet hobby out there that you have. It gets kind of insane. Other than obviously, I know snakes when you start really getting into it, but most people that get into snakes don't necessarily have 30, 40, 50, 150. Um, so adding any cost to the hobby, I think, is a bad thing. So I wish we would do something to help expos get a little bit more useful, a little bigger, a little more numerous. I don't know what we can do. I'm just just talking, but
You
Yeah,
have
I
to
think the first. Go ahead.
factor in for the United States the cost of everything, not just the cost of tarantulas, the cost of shipping, but the cost of people that are doing the expos having to stay wherever they're at, drive to wherever they're at, the time involved packing everything, the cost of breeding, feeding, all that stuff added in to that. It makes people not really want to do a bunch of expos because of the costs. And then you have to weigh the losses of going to an expo and then not selling stuff, not making what you expected to or losing money in the whole process. I think that turns a lot of people off. And that's a huge difference between here and the UK, where things are, astronomically cheaper there. When you can buy tarantulas there for what we're buying here, like Gramstol Polka, we're basically in that $70 to $95 range for a sling that may not even be a Gramstol Polka in another year or two. Saying over there, their cost would be like $20 comparable.
Yeah.
Because, people here, and honestly, of course, I've lived in America my whole entire life, but we are a greedy nation. And that's a huge factor in any hobby that you get into.
Wouldn't you guys say that it's more popular in like Europe and than it is in the US?
I don't think so. That came while I was talking
it's just as popular. It's just not.
It's
as
dense.
spoken.
It's more dense.
It's condensed there. It's
Okay.
a small area to deal with. I look at my analytics for the YouTube channel itself, and 50% of my viewers are from the United States. So that tends to lead me to believe that the hobby is just as strong here as it is over there. But I have found, and nothing against the people from other countries, that the other countries the people from the UK are very supportive of their people that do YouTube videos from the UK that may not be as supportive of the people over here. So, those numbers got to play in the factor. But I think that the driving factor of the hobby comes from Germany, Poland, and the UK more than it does here. Most of your taxonomists and biologists are from that area. There's very few from the United States that do that. So you have a lot more knowledge over there than you do over here.
I like what Molten Bolt Exotics just said. I do think it is gaining popularity over here, though, with more and more people.
Definitely. I see that every day with, new people joining the Facebook groups alone, just that in itself, and people that I haven't seen before. It's really blown up in the last 3 years, to be honest. I could put a timetable on it. 3 years ago, it really took off. This hobby really took off here in the United States.
Like, just as I got out of it, that's when it would start getting better. But at least I'm back in it now.
I'm brand new, so
nothing wrong with that. At least you're like putting in the effort like you're supposed to, and doing everything right. So that's a problem with the people with it getting bigger and bigger. Is it getting too many, like you were saying, just people joining to join?
Yeah, but you know what? I think I don't really like to call it a hobby because I'm like an animal person in general. So they're like my children. Like I don't know. Like I've always put in effort with animals. So
see, that's another thing that Dave brought up the other day in one of his videos, talking about how to some people it was like it was your video about should you breed or not. Is it like something you have to do? And to some people, they're pets. They're named. They have personalities and all that. And to some people, they're a breeding project. They're my collection. I fall probably a little bit more in the collection side. This is my collection. This is what I have. I want to get this and this and this in my collection. So I'll admit that I'm different than like your opinion of it. Is you're an animal person. They're your kids. So it's also a very big difference, I think, in this hobby, where like I think in most other pet hobbies, they don't see it as a collection. They do see it more like you, as it's a member of the family type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I see it as my collection as well.
Yeah, I'm more of a collection guy.
If I didn't need my spiders, I don't know what I'd do.
How many do you have, by the way?
I only have, first of all, I have 8 now, but I'm actually picking up a rose hair from somebody that is giving it up on Sunday. And then I have one of Tom Moran's versicolors coming in the mail next week. So 10. That's
cool.
it.
Nothing wrong with that. I wasn't saying it's a negative thing at all. Don't think of it that way.
No, that's fine. It's just like when I talk to people, like normal people, they think that I have like a million. And I'm like, you have no idea. I'm on the very low end of the spectrum in this hobby. And they think that 8 is like a huge number of spiders. And I'm like,
that's how it is in my area.
Yeah.
When I got my first 7, people were like, oh my God. And which I just got into it in November as well. And I'm up to 48 already. And I have another 17 coming next week. And it just blows people's mind, how I've already got so many.
You're about 2 months more in the hobby, or be back how I am, and you have almost double the amount of tarantulas I have.
I've always loved inverts since I was a kid, and I mean, I've not only do I have them, I have like 10 different ant colonies, and I've got 14 praying mantis,
Ah,
and
see that
I like my inverts.
that's coming to my channel very soon. Ants, like
That's cool.
ever since my tag video, I was like, oh, what do you want to go and
It's
see in the
fun.
wild? Like, I don't want to get into that though because like I said I want to keep it talking. Actually,
Yeah.
guys, we are sitting at about the hour mark now. So if anybody wants any closing remarks on the state of the hobby, if there's anything you think we missed we should talk about, let's get that out now. Does anybody have anything like that they want to, they think I haven't brought up yet, or they want to get out there?
I think your only other we missed talking about was your supply and demand.
I thought we kind of got in with expos, but let's get more into that then, though. So I was kind of getting to that with the supply and demand, the fact that you can only get them. My issue with that was that you can only get them online. Or it
Right.
seems like you only get them online because it seems like the supply only goes to online. I think that's what I was thinking of for that. Is there anything else you want to talk to about that though? That's
Well, we can touch on just one quick thing because it's cyclical. Tarantula breeding is cyclical, and you'll see certain species or certain genera will be more popular from one year to the next. Last year it was Poecilotheria metallica, just blew up. They were everywhere. Harpactira pulchripes. It was another one last year that blew up. This year it's Grammostola pulchra, and that has everything to do with the Facebook groups, not just ours, but like arachnoboards and other places where people are putting pictures up, and all these new people are coming in and saying, "Oh my God, look at that beautiful black spider! I need to have one." Before you know it, you have 500 or 600 people that want one, and only one person in the United States that has any, because of the difficulty of breeding that specific species. So now we have to import them. So all the ones that everybody's getting right now, none of those were bred here in the United States. They were all bred overseas, in Poland and in the UK and in Germany. So the supply, we are probably the highest country that has a demand. Okay, so out of everybody that is dealing with tarantulas in the world, we demand more than any other country because, of course, we're bigger than most other countries. But you'll see, I go with right now, Thalmopaeus pulcher is a big one for me because it's, my female's the one that really pushed me into this hobby. You really don't see any for sale right now. They're hard to
No.
find. These are concerned.
what
I've been
And-
looking for them for about 3 weeks now.
what is a
We were-
Salmopaeus pulchra? I
The
keep hearing.
Panama blonde.
Okay.
It's Panama
okay,
blonde,
okay,
yeah.
okay. I keep hearing
Yeah,
everybody
so-
talk about it. I'm like, I don't know which one that one is. I keep forgetting to look it up.
You just
Like
don't
a
see.
blonde
They're easy. Thalmopaeus are very easy to breed, and it's just odd because they're. If you look at the price, and I'll give you an example for supply and demand. Most of your people that do breeding, like we'll say Fear Not Tarantulas and some of the other places, the Pelt Friction and that do breeding, they're breeding the ones that are more expensive, the ones that are harder to find. They rely on everybody else to give them the Grammostola pulchripes and the Salmopaeus pulchers and Armenias. Now Tanya does a good job of doing a lot of breeding there, and I know that Pelt Friction's doing a lot of breeding there. So I don't want them
I
to
just
get mad at me.
discovered them like 2 days ago.
But understanding that what's available out there. 3 years ago, I was desperate trying to find a GBB sling. Couldn't find him. Finally, Fear Not Tarantulas got some in. And that was my first GBB, and that was the one that I raised. It only took 2.5 years for him to mature, and I sent him off to breed someplace else. But now they're everywhere. You can find GBBs anywhere. 3 years ago, they were hard to find. So that's where that supply and demand comes into effect, and that's why Grammostola pulchra are so expensive, is because the majority or the influx of people coming into the hobby, seeing these wow spiders, as I call them, the Poecilotheria metallicas, to me has always been a wow spider. It's not, people see blue and their eyes get real big, even though I think there's much better blue spiders out there than that.
I agree. The Metallica is overrated in my opinion.
I think it's
Fair.
funny because
I
like
think. Oh, the cookies.
I think it's funny because I guess I was in the hobby 4 years ago or so for about a year, and the two big spiders when I was in actually were the Metallica and the Pulchra still. And I come back into the hobby now, and it's the Metallica and the Pulchra again. And then I find out there's some more in between there, but or back at that. But I wanted the Pulchra then, Like I just really want it because I like the big black spiders. Like I know they're not anything special, but I like them, and so it kind of
Yeah.
sucks
I
that
find the
it's so
Go ahead.
expensive. It just sucks that it's so expensive just because it's the
Yes,
fad one, you know.
the pulchra might be a plain Jane black color, but it's the color of black, the level of black, and their stockiness. They're amazing spider to look at.
Yeah,
Tarantula.
Easy beginner tarantula too, and that's a big draw for them, is that they're easy to take care of. They're bulletproof for the most part. They're everybody calls them the black labs of the tarantula world, which is pretty much an accurate description of them. But there are much better black spiders than those ones. If you want black, trust me, there's ones that are way blacker than those ones are.
okay. Give me the list after the show because I want it.
Let's start with the Pamphobedius antineus.
Okay, I gotta put that on my list because I love the black spiders. Like the bright color
Me
ones are
too.
not my thing. I like the black ones or the black with like just a hint of other color.
I
But
seen a Kilobrachys discus black earlier. That was pretty cool.
I
But
was
it's,
gonna
it's
say
a black too. Try the Brachypelma shorderi.
I do want that. I just heard about that. I heard that's gonna be like the new big one now because you can't get the pulchra.
I think it's going to be next. I think this year, towards the end of the year, because we had somebody here successfully breed them, so you're going to see spiderlings start filtering into some of the places that are going to sell them. And when people, the first thing that they do is I'm sure all of you have done this. I've done it myself when I first started. You go to somebody's list and you start scrolling and you see a picture and you're like, oh God, I got to have it. You go to Google, you look it up and you see what it looks like as an adult and you're like, oh, I absolutely have to have it. And then you realize that, I've gone to 15 different places and they're the only ones that have it for sale. So it's got to be rare. And you know how it is. People want the things that are rarer in the hobby. And I think the Shorderi is going to be one this year that's going to be popular. And also, not a black spider, but check out the Aphonopelma moderatum. I think that's going to be another one this year that's going to gain some popularity.
The Chalcodes is one of my favorite as well.
I'm gonna have to look for that one. Jeez, before it gets too popular and I have to pay a fortune for one.
Yeah, you're going to pay $70 for one right now.
Jeez, that's crazy already. Oh, I need to find some cheap spiders that I like and go get them first.
I'm trying to knock out the expensive ones first, and then I'm going back to the cheap ones.
I did get some expensive ones that I have on my list already. I'm on a waiting list to get my colony of Belfori. So I gotta hold
Yeah,
my breath for that.
I'm doing a video on those next week. So
You should have came to
yeah,
me.
that's
I'm
all
going
I'm gonna say.
What's that?
said you
I
should.
said I'm doing a video. Go ahead.
Dave, I want to hear. I couldn't hear Dave.
Okay.
I'm calling it communal.
Oh, well, you're gonna have some for sale soon, or?
I'm going to tell my communal right now. If somebody's willing to buy all 4 of them, they can have them. I like them. I think they're cool looking. They're just not for me.
Oh, I love the communal. I don't know, especially after seeing Tom's video. But anyways, we're getting way off topic, so I think it's probably time to end the stream then.
yes.
Okay, well, thank you all for coming, everybody. Everyone's link to the channel is in the description below. Please go check out everybody's channel, give them a sub. I know there's some people that have less subs on here than me, so some of you out there ain't subbed to them yet, so go check them out. And thank you, everybody, for showing up and having this talk with me, and it was fun.
Yes, it was fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Well,
I learned a lot.
Appreciate everybody coming in too.
yeah, everybody in the chat too, coming, chatting, talking, listening. Thank you guys very much. Everybody who is eventually going to be watching, thank you very much. And I think I'm going to be there, so good night.
Later, everyone.
Bye.